Welcome from Myran Covenant and a Neffy-free ancient pagan festival to you all.
To keep in the Yule spirit, I'm wearing this snowman costume, which is of course an idol, and therefore banned by Christian funders. I would also like to introduce our special guest, the Nefster, which is Nephilim-free's atheist alter ego.
Hello YouTube and a secular Yuletide to you all.
As you can see, not everything about him is different to his Christian alter ego.
The snowman, like many Christmas symbols, like the Yule log, the fir trees, the holly and the ivy, are all actually vestigial pagan symbols, left over from the destruction of those religions, by our enlightened Christian forefathers.
Now normally we are bang alongside the destruction of religions, but in this case the one we were left with was probably worse than the one it replaced.
So we have decided to reclaim this pagan festival for what it is. A good excuse to feel good for no reason, right in the middle of the darkest, nastiest time of the year.
So we will start by taking a look at this Christian mythology. We like Santa Claus and choose to believe in him on the basis that he makes more sense than virgin births, and we have seen him. He is down there in fact.
Ho 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 baby.
Quite, which brings us to the next part of the program. I would like to introduce the Nefster's professional, personal assistant, Chantal. Please put your false teeth back in for a minute, Chantal, and speak to the people out here.
We can safely miss out the Annunciation. Luke and Matthew may have known about it, and suspiciously Luke was the latest of the Gospel writers to compile the myths into texts. As a result, everything about Jesus seems to have snowballed in the miraculous and wondrous area. But let's skip that, and skip the fact that Mary's consent to this conception, by whatever means, was considered irrelevant. Let's go straight to the first troubling thing. This census. The bottom line is, there is no census. It was supposedly ordered by Augustus Caesar for all of the empire for the purposes of taxation. Judea did not become a Roman province until 6 AD. Although money absolutely flowed into Rome from tribute states before 6 AD, there was no organized taxation system. There was no record of any census, but there certainly would have been if it had been decreed. Even if there was no record in Judea itself, then there would be something from all the other Roman provinces. Such a census would have undoubtedly been recorded in the historical records of the Jews, the Gauls, the Spanish, the Corinthians. Get the picture. And why did Joseph and Mary have to travel to Bethlehem? There was certainly no need to go to any hometown, especially since people often did not know where they came from and there is no written record of births at that time. All they have to do is just raise records where people currently live. This is just an attempt to make Jesus seem descended from the royal house of David. Taxation in the Roman Empire was continuous and thorough, and there was a system of local tax collectors. None of this makes any sense. It is just a fabrication to make Joseph seem like he was of royal descent to fulfill the Old Testament prophecies that the Christ would be of the house of David.
That's right. You will hear Christian apologists doing everything they can to suggest a census could just possibly have happened. Because they have too. But all common sense shows it did not.
What about the massacre of the Holy Innocents? Did Herod really kill all those babies in Bethlehem? Are they the first martyrs? Surely as unbaptized children they have to go to hell as they are still sinful.
Yes, that's right. The disgusting concept of original sin applies even to these babies. Fortunately there is no record of this atrocity, except by the Gospel writers, who were very poor historians who could not even agree amongst themselves. So we can ignore this theological nonsense.
To avoid this massacre that did not happen, they fled to Egypt. Why did they have to hide in Egypt? Why cower? The Old Testament God would certainly not stand for this nonsense. He would have smote them. Then they traveled to a town called Nazareth, which at that time does not exist. That's right. Nazareth did not exist. Talam Chantal. He was however a Nazarene, which was a known sect of fishers of men at the time. Maybe they just had to find a way of linking Jesus up with that fact, but not make it seem like he was part of a sect of desert lunatics, and therefore make his teaching seem original. Like it is a new message. The Dead Sea Scrolls do seem to indicate that Jesus' message was not all that revolutionary. Maybe that's why he is so historically unimportant and absent in any contemporary literature, outside the Gospels of course, which are not contemporary. What do you think, Chantal?
Nazareth is not mentioned even once in the entire Old Testament. The Book of Joshua, 19.10:16, and what it claims is the process of settlement by the tribe of Zebulun in the area, records 12 towns and 6 villages and yet omits any Nazareth from its list. The Talmud, although it names 63 Galilean towns, knows nothing of Nazareth, nor does early rabbinic literature. Of course, St. Paul knows nothing of a Nazareth. Rabbi Sally's epistles, both real and fake, mention Jesus 221 times, Nazareth not at all. Also, no ancient historian or geographer or any surviving contemporary maps mention Nazareth. It is first noted at the beginning of the 4th century. But what about positive evidence? There are graveyards in the caves nearby. Under Jewish law, nobody could settle there. The current Church of the Annunciation is built over a Roman graveyard, in use still at the end of the 1st century, so that is obvious nonsense too. There's no way Nazareth could have existed then, even as a tiny hamlet, which could not have supported a carpenter anyway.
So obviously, the Christians came, with their badly written Bible, disguised in Latin, which the gullible ordinary folk did not speak. So they did not understand the nonsense they were being fed. And the old ways were lost forever. So how do we reclaim and resurrect this ancient festival?
The way we see it, we can still use the Christian terms as Christianity is now embedded in our culture. This is the same problem Christians had, and pagan ways are also embedded in our culture. We just no longer notice.
All festivals are shallow by nature. They are just marked points we set aside to make merry and feel good. There is no deep spiritual meaning. There is only feeling good with each other, because at the end of the day, all we have is each other. Each other to care for, to live with, and sometimes to die for.
My thoughts would be that Christmas starts with the children. We give them presents to give them the best time of their lives. People say commercialism is bad, but I say, that is just another thing to believe in, a mantra that sounds good on the surface. I say don't get a bug up your ass about it. Enjoy the life you have while you can. That's why I can say I have a wide on just now, watching these two next to me, and not feel bad about it.
People's jobs rely on making Christmas gifts. It forces us to spend when we would otherwise not do, and stimulate the economy. The kids feel good, so the adults feel good, and everyone just gets that extra 10%.
Here we are arguing for commercialism, but there are worse things. Nothing has to be Christian, if you don't want it to be. We can usurp Christian Christmas to secular Yuletide, and do to the Christians what they did to the pagans. The music at the start of this video was a rock piece without religious significance, and the next piece was a druid chant. You still felt seasonal though.
Enjoy it whilst you can, folks. Don't feel guilty about not thanking God for it, the hard work was all yours. And don't worry about passing on Santa Claus traditions to your kids. They enjoy it, and when they find out the truth, it will give them a healthy dose of skepticism that they can use to fight off religion in their older years. Happy Yuletide. You can sing the Christian songs that are as meaningless as the old-time religions that preceded it.
Gaudete, gaudete, Christus